Welcome to Red Ice Creations Radio. This is Internet Talk Radio, available through our website, redicecreations.com. I'm your host, Henrik Palmgren, and we are recording from the west coast of Sweden. Thank you for tuning in to this Sunday edition of our program. And today we have back with us on the show our monthly regular, Alan Watt, and it's always a pleasure and a treat to spend time cutting through the matrix with Mr. Watt. And Alan's website, of course, is cuttingthroughthematrix.com, or you can try .net also. Check it out, follow along in his excellent audio blurbs, and take a look at the books and the DVDs and all the material that he's got available there for you. So I hope things have been good since we last spoke, Alan. Welcome. It's great to have you back on the line.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. You know, we received a few word emails about a few weeks ago regarding your website being down and so forth, and your audio blurbs were not available. I guess you had some issues over there, but everything is back and up and running now, I guess.
Yeah, I went over it. I gave a talk on disclosed and verified information on the CIA bringing in the drugs to sell on the streets of the U.S. and rehashing the old Iran-Contra deal. Mm-hmm. And someone at the top didn't like it, I think.
So they
rehashed this kind of stuff and put the word in to give me a hard time.
So did you did someone attack the web server or something like that? Do you know where this came from?
Yeah, Yahoo pulled one of the sites down. Mm-hmm. But round in circles didn't ever really get to the bottom of it. And also at the same time we're getting viruses and Trojans sent into the website. So someone got annoyed.
Yeah. Maybe a hint that you're on the right track.
This is the sort of nonsense they do.
Yeah.
They do this kind of stuff for harassment's sake. And,
yeah.
It's quite easy for them to do since they can get into anybody's site. That's by law.
Yeah.
The government agencies can get into anybody's site and play around with it.
And it takes a lot of time, and I guess that's the main issue in one sense, that it takes such a long time to get things back up and running again, and by then you're behind on the work and behind on email answering and so forth, all of that.
Yeah, in fact, one weekend can set you back 2 weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
quite easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm glad things are up and running, and you have a few mirror sites more now, I guess, because traffic has been heavy on all of your sites, I guess.
Yes, and it's also a safety in case, again, Yahoo could pull the sites at any time. Mm-hmm. And it suddenly dawned on me that you could lose all your information and then have no backup. Exactly, yeah. So at least this way, although it could be done, but it's highly unlikely they could pull all the sites at once. Yeah. Yeah. On different internet ISP companies or something like that. So it's more difficult. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Last time we talked during our regular show, we finished off on a note about the Mayflower, and maybe it would be appropriate to spend some time on this, talking about the kind of the beginnings of the Americas, and how, why, and when, I guess, the continent was colonized at first. We recently there were the 275th birthday of founder and Masonic president of the U.S., George Washington. And a very simple search, I guess, on Wikipedia on the Mayflower, of course, states that the Mayflower was the ship that transported the Pilgrim Fathers from Plymouth, England, to Virginia, U.S. And Alan, are you saying that there's something to add to that? Yes, I mean, obviously this wasn't the first part of the colonization, and yet so much attention is given to this particular group coming in. People have been coming in for a long time beforehand, but it became almost part of the American tradition that there was something very special about the Mayflower coming in. And they've never really gone into it except
when you follow the history of the Mayflower, it was to do with families from different parts of Europe that went under a cover of Christianity. They were tended to be very wealthy families,
Mm-hmm.
and going under sort of Puritan guise. And their ancestry often were into revolutionaries in different parts of Europe, the Waldenses and different sects. They ultimately all became part of the Puritan movement, and they moved into the U.S. And even, as I say, the name of the ship, the Mayflower, May Day is their big day,
Yeah.
and the mysteries. Yeah.
So these are the pilgrims. Do you know why they call it this? The name? Where does it?
Well, a pilgrim was often, especially in the 1800s, in fact, it was common in Freemasonic meetings when you met someone to call them a pilgrim or a traveler. It was one who was on the journey, looking, seeking that which was lost. That's what they would say. Are you a pilgrim?
Ah.
And so it's part of a mystery religion. And I'm sure lots of the Puritans came in, and they were actually descended from the Albigensians of Europe.
This is a family bloodline?
That and almost a separate religion, which could almost emulate and simulate Christianity, but it had an esoteric side to it as part of a mystery-type religion.
Okay.
The Cathars and the Albigensians rivaled in parts of Europe. They rivaled the Catholic Church at one time. They also had an almost mirror-type image of the Catholic hierarchy structure. They were very wealthy people. They had their own bishops and priests, but they had almost a mirror image and yet an opposite viewpoint on what the God was. And the God of the world was their enemy, according to them. And therefore, he who ruled the world was Satan.
Ah, okay. And did they...
Anything off the world was Satan's. And they also had a form of almost reincarnation belief tucked away, hidden in the esoteric side of the religion that was kept quiet from the lower orders.
It sounds very Gnostic, I guess, in some terms.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also they believed that it was doing a child no favor to bring them into this world. So, there's a lot written during the Inquisitions about them.
Yeah.
We don't know how much is true, because obviously those who are the victors always defame those that they beat. But over and over again, we do know they had almost a communal type celebratory days or festivals, which in a sense were orgiastic.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, do you think that some of these actually infiltrated themselves within, the Catholic Church and stuff like this? This is, must have happened in
I'm sure of it. In fact, when they scattered, it's odd. Here's the Vatican declaring the last crusade, which was not in the Middle East. It was in parts of Europe. And it was against the Cathars and the Albigensians.
Yeah.
That was the last crusade that was ordered by the papacy. And they chased them. They didn't all get killed or slaughtered. Many of them did. And you'll find from the Holy Blood, Holy Grail, this kind of stuff, this is what they're always leading to, of those that escaped with the relics of their holy religion.
Sure.
They always wrap it in without telling you the whole story. Because they were wrapped in with the Templars and different organizations, brotherhoods.
Yeah.
Even though they were mainly a lay-type organization where they did marry, as opposed to the Knights Templars, they didn't marry, but they had their lay organization, and the Cathars and Albigensians seem to have been it.
Interesting. You mentioned the Puritans also. What's for those that don't know, what is this group? Is this a Christian group?
Yeah, the Puritans were it was almost a reverting to the Old Testament laws, where everything became somber. There was to be no dancing, no gaiety, no happiness, just hard work and praising God quietly.
Yeah.
That was the Puritan movement. That was it was really financed from Holland into existence, especially in England, through Oliver Cromwell. His whole army was financed by Holland, the bankers of Holland. Yeah. And they took over Britain for a while and introduced the Puritan movement.
Interesting.
And so it was a time when everything was very, very strict. There was no spontaneity. They didn't allow music in the churches. It was all very, very somber.
Ah.
They wore black, of course.
One thing that comes to mind is the Amish people. Very interesting. Do you think that these are connect with the Puritans in any way?
You will find that all of them have their roots around the same time period. The Amish and different groups originated in Germany. They kept a lot of their traditions and their language often. When I look at the groups like the Amish or the Mennonites, I see it a bit differently. I see them all almost like experiments in controlled breeding. Because you're taking a group out of a population, and within that group you arrange marriages, and their marriages are arranged. And you can select under a controlled study of who marries whom, and it's almost like an experiment in breeding. That's how I see these things.
Yeah.
And the same with the Mormons.
And these, do they pick each other's, wives and so forth there too in the Mormons?
Yeah, very, very often. Their wives are picked for them, and in the Mennonites, for instance, there's big money involved in marriages because they tend to be pretty wealthy people, the Mennonites and Amish, and when weddings take place, it's almost a business deal between the families because big estates are involved, often very large tracts of land, lots of money. So there's a lot more than just, they don't allow them just to pick their own mate.
Ah, okay, yeah. One thing that comes to mind when speaking about the Mormons is it feels like there's a lot of also Old Testament connections and going back to the stuff about Israel and so forth. I know that there's some Freemasonic connection to it all, but do you know about the Salt Lake, the area? Is the connection between Israel and the Salt Lake in what's I don't know. Do you know what the region is called?
Yeah, there's a Dead Sea.
Yeah.
As well, the Dead Sea in Israel is salt.
That's right. Yeah.
And so there's a connection to an extent there, but I think it's even more so than that. Joseph Smith is the founder of the Mormon group.
Yeah.
And once again, you'll find that Joe Smith was a Mason, a Freemason.
Yeah.
You can find that they have an order called the elect for men within Mormonism. And when you become an electi and you're elected in, you go through the same rituals and the same secret oaths as Freemasonry. They're identical. They are the same. They're one and the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think, once again, this is another control group for experimentation on controlled breeding.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Regarding the Dead Sea, of course, I guess there's a lot of salt lakes around the place. We even got a salt lake or a saltsjö, as we call it in Sweden, Saltsjöbaden and stuff like this.
Yes.
So I guess this is a lot of places that this kind of connects with. So, regarding, again, I guess returning to the Swedish theme here, but that's how it is, considering that we are here as it is now. But regarding the Mayflower itself, I don't know if you guys either in Canada or in the US have something like this, but we have school kids going around door to door and selling the Mayflower on I guess this is on the day of May 1st actually. Of course, connecting this with the big union protesters, and I guess you have Labor Day over there, and this is on May 1st also, isn't that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
It's the time of regeneration. And if you go back into the older mysteries, which existed even in pre-Christian times, they had the Maypole celebration, where you danced around the Maypole with its red and white streamers coming down, the male and the female.
Yeah.
And it was a time for, as I say, regeneration. It was a time also when the young were encouraged to go off with the young into the forest and have intercourse. The children that were produced or were conceived on May Day were often called Robin, and that's where you get the name Robinson, because they were conceived on that particular day. These are all pre-Christian celebrations. There was an excellent movie put out years ago. It was one of the first more esoteric movie that Rob has ever created, and it was called The Wicker Man. It was the first one, made in the 1960s, I believe, and that showed you the May celebrations with the Maypole, with all the sexual innuendo involved, and the old pagan magic rituals involved within it.
Okay. Yeah, because we have a lot of stuff. Also, of course, we have the Maypole, and this is, of course, on Midsummer's Eve primarily that we up here in Sweden at least have the Maypole and all this. And this is, of course, the symbol itself is two circles hanging on one pole, actually pointing down into the earth. It's like the willy fertilizing the earth, basically.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
and these are very old pre-Christian parts of our religion. Existed pantheistic religion.
Yeah.
And that's the amazing thing. The more you go into the mystery religions, you'll find they're completely interwoven with the standard religions we're given.
Yeah.
And hidden within the standard religions.
Indeed.
Through all of them, that they all have the same esoteric stories hidden within them. And behind it all, you find obviously a connecting factor, and maybe even a connecting priesthood that run them all. I think they still do run them all.
Yeah.
All the religions. And you will see their symbols all around you growing up, and most folk take them for granted.
Yeah.
They don't realize they're looking at an actual religious symbol. Whether it's a maypole, the rose, you'll see the rose above every church door, old church door, symbolizing, the spirit, the soul, and of course the light shines through onto the priest within, and he represents the Son of God. He is the Son of God. During that time, the light shines on him. We live in a world where people see things, they practice things, and they don't know what they mean.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a big ritual ongoing, and we have no clue. And I think we can even pick up on this in modern culture. I mean, I don't know how far this goes back, but when you said regarding the regeneration aspect of this, we actually again in Sweden have something called a march also taking place on May 1st, actually, where again a bunch of school kids are going out. I guess most definitely if there is forest around in the area, there is a forest, a walk through the forest, and the kids have things with them. They have built constructed rather stuff in paper, tied it to sticks and so forth that makes sounds, and I think that at the time when when we do this, when we're small, we don't understand it, but it feels like it's a part of a ritual that actually is about awakening spring in the area.
Yes.
And that's what it feels like to me, and that's what's, I guess we could connect this with Easter also, because this is basically during the same period, I think. And again, we go
all
back.
Connected, absolutely.
Yeah.
As I say, they used to have the May celebration, and what you'd find is that the young girls would dress, they put garlands of flowers around them, and symbolizing the feminine again, the fertility.
Yeah.
The males would often dress up with green, and so they symbolize nature. That's the green man of Freemasonry. Every Mason, in a sense, becomes a green man, the man of nature, the man of the woods. And the residing priest or the head man would have green, but he'd also have a red hat on. So he portrayed the robin, you see.
Yeah.
And again, that's why they called him son of Robin. All those that were conceived because of the May mating were called Robin's son.
Robin Hood?
Yeah, that too. That Robin Hood is all symbolic of that. He wore a cloak of green.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He lived in the green woods.
And I've even heard that in Sherwood, the Sherwood Forest was actually the home of the Rothschilds. Do you know about this?
Well, I'll tell you, it's closer to the truth, and it's much, much older than that even. Because when Rome first came into Britain, they didn't make their headquarters in what became London. They moved into that area where Lincoln was, Lincolnshire, and they called their main city Bath.
B-A-S?
B-A-T-H.
Oh, okay.
And they did have the Roman baths there, the hot water springs.
Yeah.
And they had piped-in plumbing and everything.
Amazing.
And you can still have walks around the old places today. But that was also their banking headquarters when they first came into Britain. And if you look at the old Roman names that they gave to those parts of Britain, that part was called Heberacum.
Okay.
Heberacum, yeah.
Heberacum. Do you know what
it was? Their banking headquarters.
Okay. Do you know what it means, Heberacum?
Well, it really meant Hebrew, from Hebrew.
Oh, okay.
Because that was the bankers of ancient times.
Oh, okay.
Probably nothing to do with the more modern ones, but these were the bankers, and they called that whole area Hebracum. It later became called York.
Yeah.
And that York for a long time was the center of power for royalty, the Duke of York, and the banking enterprise of Old England for a long time. And wherever the bankers moved, they called the place York. Now you have New York.
Sure, yeah. There we go. Yeah, round and round we go in these circles all the time.
Yeah, from 2,000 years up to the present.
Yeah, indeed. Regarding the green, when is St. Patrick's Day over there in the States?
It's not on the same date, St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
Yeah, it's later.
Okay, so this is might not have something to do with the green and the spring celebration in that sense.
Oh, I'm sure in a sense it does. Just a different date, but it's anywhere where you see green, you're symbolizing nature.
Yeah.
And for instance, in the nearest town to me, there was a Masonic group for the Knights of Columbus, who had their headquarters in Sudbury. And they had an artist paint on the entire end of the wall of the house or the building a picture of a woman sitting with her child on a park bench, and behind her is a big tree. It's green. In the tree is a face. That's the face of the green man of nature. Now her husband is standing up. He's a Freemason. His face is also reflecting green, and his son that the woman's holding is also green. It's telling you that nature passes through the male line, and of course green symbolizes life.
Yeah. Is this? I don't know if we can connect these two, but the Green Man and also known as Pan. Is this the same deity?
Yeah, Pan comes into it too. Pan again is the sort of goat man.
Yeah.
He's the climber as well. He climbs to high places. He's got the ability to go up the mountains and go higher than other species.
Yeah.
That's the symbology of Pan. But he's also a man of nature, and he will follow nature. Now, for those who control the world, they control it through understanding human nature, both male and female.
Mm-hmm.
And they use either one according to the time period and the agenda. They will focus more on changing the woman's outlook or the male's outlook, depending on what suits them at the time.
Interesting. Again, regarding, I guess, if we are to take back this to the regeneration aspect of this, symbology connecting the bunny with spring and with the Playboy, more
Yes.
more stuff like this going on in our modern culture. Referring back to all of this, I don't know if you have, I remember an incident going on here. I guess it was last Easter. We had I think it was Victoria Silvstedt, one of these Swedish, fold-out centerfold babes, basically, on the front covers on the billboards. What is it called? The billboard, the paper when you're gonna buy the paper.
Yes.
The headline sign at the front with this picture of this, woman on exactly on the day of Easter. And again, it felt like this, regeneration ritual going on right in the front of, right in the face, basically. Trying to get, people, I guess, aroused around that period and so forth. I don't know. I'm going to track it again this year and see if this is something that returns. I don't know, but...
Well, I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
Everything that you see when it comes to these rituals and formulas fixed to dates and times, which have been here for a long, long time, you can always count on it as part of an inner religion.
Mm-hmm.
That has always existed within your culture and is known by those who join the so-called, well, not all of them, but the ones who get higher up in the mystery schools, they understand it.
Yeah.
But the bunny rabbit is always part of it. You can actually break it down. You can break down the names they even give to things to understand them. They say that we speak our reality into existence.
Yeah.
And in fact, we're speaking their reality into existence. Bunny rabbit, if you just take the spoken word and forget how it's really spelled, but it's B, and then you have UN for one in French.
Okay.
And then you have Y, you see? You'll find the Y crops up all through Masonry and higher Masonry.
Yeah.
Because it's the male chromosome.
The Y chromosome, yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember
and we know that eventually they want to create a perfected man. And they really want to ultimately do away with the female altogether as being irrelevant in a system to come in the future. They've worked on that. That's the whole push towards genetics in one direction only, and that's to perfect man.
Yeah.
Not for man's sake, but to man to be a better slave. So Y is a representation of the male, always. So be one Y. Yeah.
Also, of course, I guess we could tie this back to the stage magician pulling a bunny out of the rabbit, right?
Off the hat.
Yeah, of that. Yeah, of course.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's right there apparently, and regarding, I guess, the May Day again. Do you know if this actually is the birthday, so to speak, of the Illuminati, 1776?
It seems to be they put that down as that. There's no doubt they picked that day to coincide with that which they already believed in.
Yeah.
They picked that day to match the religion they already followed. They were basically bringing it out into the open for the first time.
May, of course, is the fifth month of our year, and again, I guess, as you say, this is regeneration, and the first. I don't know if May is considered the first summer month, or I guess it's the first spring month, I guess.
Yes, and it also depends on whose calendar you go by.
Yeah, sure, indeed, yeah.
You see, in the old Roman Empire, pre-Christian, their year would start in March. And so May was the Trinity, the first part of the Trinity in the old religion.
Okay.
And nowadays they have the 5-pointed star to represent Freemasonry, and so it's the 5th month.
5th month, yeah, of course. And I don't know if what your take on this is, but I get the sense that the United States as a whole kind of is something that is encompassing the female, or it's like the manifestation of a goddess, considering, I guess, the Statue of Liberty and all of this going into that. Is this something you would agree on?
The Statue of Liberty is neither male nor female. It's a hermaphrodite.
Okay.
Because if it was a female, look at the muscles on it.
Yeah, I gotta check that out. I haven't thought about it.
Look at the thickness of the neck.
Okay, yeah.
And you look at the shape of the body. And then you look at Oliphant and those guys who designed it and brought it over from France.
Yeah.
Who are all high Masons, whose symbol often was the hermaphrodite, the perfection of the two into one. But where logic would ultimately rule over the emotion.
Yeah, yeah.
And you'll find the symbol of the sun in different times has taken a more male form or a female form. When the capital of the ancient world was in the island of Rhodes, in the Mediterranean, the Upper Mediterranean.
Yeah.
They had what they called the Colossus. That was their symbol, and they had a naked Apollo overlooking the harbor, just like the one in New York, with the crown on his head. It's the crown of thorns of Jesus. It's the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
The thorns are the rays of the sun coming out. That's what it symbolizes. And the one they had in Rhodes, ancient Rhodes, he also held up a torch, meaning he was a light bringer.
Yeah.
He was Prometheus as well.
Yeah.
Who, so this is the old mystery religion coming down through all the ages, and always appearing at different times, and the public don't even know what they're looking at. So Jesus was the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have said that in other, I don't know if it was a blurb I was listening to, but regarding the idea that it's the, as you say, the same religion over and over, just pre-packaged in different, I guess, new forms, new ideas, and new names, basically, I guess.
Yes, exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And the same thing, even the ancient one of the Colossus of Rhodes was built with thousands of tons of bronze, just the same way, and copper. This one here, for a Christianized era, they had to at least give it a clothing. But if you look at the shape, as I say, technically it's neither male nor female. It's the hermaphrodite.
And this is to reflect the aspects of the sun.
It's part of the sun. It's also it's even deeper than that. It's to do with the ancient religion, which they believe in. For instance, they believe that you can be a god on earth if you rise high enough. You'll find even in the Christian versions of Christianity, like the King James in England or Scotland, England, they changed, I think it was the 8th Psalm, where it describes man. And it said, and now in Hebrew it says, he was made a little lower than the gods. King James had it changed and put him lower than the angels because he didn't want people believing they were sacred. He wanted to rule over them. And so there's another religion hidden within, which is to do with godhood, and it's contained within Christianity too.
Yeah.
It's also an old Judaism where you'll see Moses and so on meeting Melchizedek. Melchizedek, and often statues of Melchizedek are to be found in the higher Freemasonic lodges, because they gave to Melchizedek the same tribute as you would give to a god. And so there's an esoteric religion to do with gods who walk the earth.
Yeah. Regarding the angels, there is an order here in Sweden called the Seraphim Order, which of course is a Hebrew word for a particular class of angels.
Yeah.
And as it is now, I think that this order only foreign people and of course Swedish royalty are allowed within the order, but when you actually look at the names associated with the seraphim, it is names like Lucifer and Astarte, and there are a number of others in there, but it feels like they're actually attributing this order to the class of the fallen angels.
Oh, absolutely.
So I mean,
that's the inner one, because they now they say themselves at the higher levels. Now, whether it's for public consumption or if it's the truth, you can always guess.
Yeah.
But they say that they believe they're descended from the rebels who were cast here.
Yeah, sure.
And the reason for their inbreeding, supposedly, is because when they were cast here, there were already humans here.
Yeah.
But they were pure spirits, so they had to form the first human bodies for themselves to inhabit, which were perfect. So they willed matter into shaping bodies for themselves.
Yeah.
It's a nice fairy tale,
Yeah, sure.
But they say that when they started to inbreed with the population that was here, they began to lose their special powers, and so they had to go back to keeping genealogies and inbreeding again. And sure enough, whether people like it or not, one thing is undeniable, that right up to the present day, these people do have their mates selected from long genealogical lines.
Yeah.
Very, very old lines.
So I mean,
and that can't be denied.
Exactly. Do you think that there actually is something to the concept? That these, or is this? Are they trying to create these myths about themselves or surrounding themselves? What do you think?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. One is, it could be intrigue for the public, because they love to give us drama to talk about
sure.
and be mystified by. And then there's a practical side to it, because going back even to Plato, who was a member of the Greek aristocracy, or royalty, you might say, even, who was trained, like all aristocracy was trained from Greece and Egypt, and taught the whole mysteries. He said the same thing. He showed how he could differentiate himself and his own kind, his own class, from the rest of the people. And he would do it by dialogue and proof, by intellect. And what he said was, he says the reason that we, the aristocracy, understand concepts and sciences is because it's familiar to us, because we reincarnate. That's what he said.
And the other bunch don't.
They were just, like the Egyptians said, the commoners who picked their own mates. Once they died, their souls just withered away.
Yeah.
And didn't carry on with any memory. That was the old belief of the old religions.
Yeah.
But Plato also had a practical side, because he said he was into eugenics, as they all were. and that's the practical side, is that if you want, say, for instance, a good scientist and who has to deal with physics, you would obviously pick a woman and a male who were both very good at the same thing.
Yeah.
With a fairly good chance the offspring could inherit the same abilities, especially if you then taught them at a very early age to be very, very good at that. And so they understood that just like you're breeding animals for domestic animals, and he explained that in his book, The Republic, for the world to come, that they would create new types of humans for specialized jobs, and so on. And the guardian class, as he called his class, would run the world and control the world and always interbreed to keep the same qualities they had then, which was superior intellect.
Regarding the interbreeding and the keeping the lines or the bloodlines, I mean, I remember, I don't know if this was a news item or just speculation, but that actually drew parallels between, I think it was one of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs. I can't remember his name now, but that the Bush family line actually was related to these guys. And again, I don't know if this is the truth, but I mean, do you think that they actually can sit up there on these power thrones today and actually believe that today, that stuff?
They could believe it, or they could be the patsies. What I've found in this system, at the top, they have a group, like Plato talked about, who technically they did no work. Anyone who does any kind of work is inferior. So all of those who work and earn the public eye, the public image, are still workers. And for good workers who have been promised to be brought up into godhood, you might say, it's good to fool them as well. So I wouldn't be surprised. And they have tremendous egos, so they love to be flattered. With news such as, you're related to an ancient pharaoh, for instance. You'd be amazed at how incredibly egotistical these people are, and how they love to be told this kind of story about themselves.
Sure.
You know, I know that Prince Charles was on the media a few years ago, and he said himself, he says, I go all the way back to David of the tribe of Judah.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
And then in another interview, he says, I go all the way back to Noah. Yeah.
And I mean, this stuff keeps coming up, but the line of Cain seems to be in there a lot. And I don't know why that is at this point yet, but do you got any ideas?
Yeah, what it is, the Old Testament is a rule book for a system, and under the guise of giving you stories, they can camouflage the system. And that's why that book is used in every Masonic temple, because that's the rule book for how this system works. There's allegories behind the outer stories. So the allegories have the real meaning. The outer stories are meant for public consumption. Cain comes from the same root word as king. It comes from the same root word as Cohen, which is priest. And Cohen is priest. And even coin, because they introduced the first money. So all of that is to do with the system itself, a priesthood that runs this particular system. This system is artificial. The old system was natural. The pre-coinage, pre-moneyed system was natural. So what they tell you in a biblical sense is that Cain, who was, and again they'll say that, he was the offspring of Lucifer and Eve, you see. And meaning Lucifer was wisdom married to Eve, produced an intellect. And so his descendants, like Tubal-Cain, become the first artificers. They were scientists. They created weaponry, and they could work metals. In other words, this system that we know today, which is all materialistic and to do with sciences, is to do with a priesthood going back for thousands and and gives us a very old version of science, so that we never figure out how far ahead we really are.
Yeah. Yeah, this keeps on coming up again and again. I mean, and as you say, Tubal Cain, I guess one of the builders of the Solomon's Temple, I guess, and he was a craftsman, a blacksmith or something like that. And again, this could be connected with the deity of Vulcan.
Well, Vulcan, Vulcan was the old thunder god.
Thor.
That's right. The volcano god. The volcanos, they call them. So sure, it's all connected. It's all as I say, within Bibles, you're given a truth which is esoteric, which is never explained by ministers or priests to the public, because they don't know themselves.
Yeah.
But there's a complete inner story to do primarily with sciences hidden inside the Old Testament. And the whole idea, see, once you think of, read a story, and you picture the people as people, you've lost it. It's written in such a way as to confuse you. Once you imagine a person struggling through the desert, you'll remember that for the rest of your life, and it's hard to see the meaning behind. It's nothing to do with real people. It's to do with a system and branches of a system that keeps the system going. It's an inner religion. And so Cain is just a symbol of an artificer who made stuff for war, you see?
Yeah.
And through war you conquer others and you create empires.
Sure.
And you dominate and use slavery, etc. And you do it through craftiness. You're a craftsman.
Yeah.
And you understand the metals through science, in other words. So it's all to do with the sciences.
Indeed.
And sure enough, in the Middle Ages, when the Rosicrucians came forward, they said that they would conquer nature by understanding nature. In other words, through science. You would perfect that, meaning the world and everything in it, and especially man himself. They would perfect man by the sciences, by understanding and unlocking the secrets of nature. And that's been their goal, not just since then. That was their goal thousands of years ago.
I mean, there's no, in that kind of philosophy, there's no, I mean, no sense or contact in that sense with a godlike character that actually, arrange and create natures according to, that all you see around you actually is perfect because it works and goes around and so forth and sustains itself. And but in this philosophy, it seems like, again, I guess connecting back with the first group we were talking about, that actually sees nature and all of this in that as kind of like Satan's creation, basically. I don't know.
Well, what it is that they give you a story of Satan and Lucifer were two different characters.
Yeah, sure.
And Satan was the Arabs call it Shaitan, or Shaitan. And so it also comes from the root word Saturn.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
And so Saturn, in the mystery religions, that's where all priests and so on come from. They wear the black robe.
Yeah, yeah.
So Saturn is a part of a system we live in, and that's where you see judges wearing black robes.
Yeah.
People in university wearing black robes. That's part of the inner religion. They run the sciences of the system and the law of the system. So Lucifer was a different one. Lucifer was the most intelligent one. So his gift was intelligence.
Yeah.
But he also was the chief musician, meaning through the use of the muses, as the Greeks would call it, the muses, he could captivate and hold a culture through his ability of music and drama, etc. So in other words, culture creation.
Yeah. You
could lead the people through like a bull by the nose, if you understand how to use the muses. And so each one has a gift, And what they're telling you there is each part of this particular system and how it works, how it's run, and how the general population have no idea that nothing in their system is theirs, and that they have no say in it. We are directed along a course, pre-planned, not destined, but planned, by people who understand this very old religion.
Yeah.
And they have all the money in the world to do it. They hire thousands of think tanks. They have the next 100, 200, 300 years mapped out already.
Yeah.
They knew in the 1500s that towards the end of the millennium, and they wrote about it 500 years ago, that they would make the biggest changes the world has ever seen. And they would also unite the world. They knew that then.
You know, this is very interesting, and I want to continue on this theme just in a few minutes when we continue talking in the subscriber section, and kind of, I guess, tie this together in a way with, you know, in correlation to the discovery of the Americas, connecting, you know, Cortez and Pizarro, I guess, working for the Vatican, and this idea that, as you say, that they actually 500 years ago was in this region. And I'm going to ask you if you know if there could be a connection with the Maya people and so forth here, but one thing that just comes to mind, of course, is regarding the time, as you say, and connecting with Saturn, because I guess that this is Saturn is also known as Kronos, or the crown, or, you know, the guy with the what's it called, the hourglass basically, and the sickle, right?
The sickle.
Yeah. So we have the communist, socialistic connecting with this, as we were talking about our last month, very much so.
Yeah.
So there we have it. You know, we have just about 1 minute left here in this section, but as always, I'd like to finish off. You know, if they're leaving the floor open for a minute or so, if there's anything you want to share with us, or of course plug your website, and you got a few books out there and DVDs and so forth.
Yes, there's stuff they can purchase. There's a lot of free stuff there on www.cuttingthroughthematrix.com. And I put more up every week, and I go into the mysteries here and there, and I will be putting a whole series out on the mysteries, with the histories, with the agenda from A to Z. It's not pleasant, but people have to know the truth if they want to do anything about it, and they have to be willing to look at the truth to change things.
Yeah, so there we go, cuttingthroughthematrix.com, or try .net to reach Alan's website and do support his work. As I said, check out the website, a lot of books and DVDs and material for you right there. But Alan and I will continue in the subscriber section now, so we will just take a short break and we will be right back.
You have been listening to Red Ice Creations Radio, and you can find us at redicecreations.com.
Who are we? Where do we come from? And where are we going?
Welcome. This is Red Ice Radio.
When you met someone, to call them a pilgrim or a traveler. There was one who was on the journey, looking, seeking that which was lost. That's what they would say. Are you a pilgrim? And so it's part of a mystery religion. And I'm sure lots of the Puritans came in, and they were actually descended from the Albigensians of Europe.
This is a family bloodline?
That and almost a separate religion, which could almost emulate and simulate Christianity, but it had an esoteric side to it. As part of a mystery type religion.
Okay.
The Cathars and the Albigensians rivaled in parts of Europe. They rivaled the Catholic Church at one time. They also had an almost mirror type image of the Catholic hierarchy structure. They were very wealthy people.
Mm-hmm.
They had their own bishops and priests, but they had almost a mirror image and yet an opposite viewpoint on what the God was. And the God of the world was their enemy, according to them.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, he who ruled the world was Satan.
Ah, okay. And did they...
Anything off the world was Satan's. And they also had a form of almost reincarnation belief tucked away, hidden.
The Pilgrim Fathers from Plymouth, England to Virginia, U.S. And Alan, are you saying that there's something to add to that?
Yes, I mean, obviously this wasn't the first part of the colonization, and yet so much attention is given to this particular group coming in. People had been coming in for a long time beforehand, but it became almost part of the American tradition that there was something very special about the Mayflower coming in. And they've never really gone into it, except when you follow the history of the Mayflower, it was to do with families from different parts of Europe that went under a cover of Christianity. They were tended to be very wealthy families, and going under sort of Puritan guise. And their ancestry often were into revolutionaries in different parts of Europe, the Waldenses and different sects. They ultimately all became part of the Puritan movement, and they moved into the U.S. And even, as I say, the name of the ship, the Mayflower, May Day is their big day.
Yeah.
And the mysteries. Yeah.
So these are the pilgrims. Do you know why they call it this? The name? Where does it?
Well, a pilgrim was often, especially in the 1800s, in fact, it was common in Freemasonic meetings.
Then your audio blurbs were not available. I guess you had some issues over there, but everything is back and up and running now, I guess.
Yeah, I gave a talk on disclosed and verified information on the CIA bringing in the drugs to sell on the streets of the U.S. and rehashing the old Iran-Contra deal. And someone at the top didn't like it, I think.
So they
rehashed this kind of stuff and put the word in to give me a hard time.
So did someone attack the web server or something like that? Do you know where this came from?
Yeah, Yahoo pulled one of the sites down. But round in circles didn't ever really get to the bottom of it. And also at the same time, we're getting viruses and Trojans sent into the website. So someone got annoyed.
Yeah, maybe a hint that you're on the right track.
This is the sort of nonsense they do.
Yeah.
They do this kind of stuff for harassment's sake. And,
yeah.
It's quite easy for them to do since they can get into anybody's site. That's by law.
Yeah.
The government agencies can get into anybody's site and play around with it.
And it takes a lot of time, and I guess that's the main issue in one sense, that it takes such a long time to get things back up and running again, and by then you're behind on the work and behind on email answering and so forth, all of that.
Yeah, in fact, one weekend can set you back 2 weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
quite easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I'm glad things are up and running, and you have a few mirror sites more now, I guess, because traffic has been heavy on all of your sites, I guess.
Yes, and it's also a safety in case, again, Yahoo could pull the sites at any time. And it suddenly dawned on me that you could lose all your information and have no backup.
Exactly. Yeah.
So at least this way, although it could be done, but it's highly unlikely they could pull all the sites at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On different internet ISP companies or something like that. So it's more difficult. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Last time we talked during our regular show, we finished off on a note about the Mayflower, and maybe it would be appropriate to spend some time on this, talking about the kind of the beginnings of the Americas, and how, why, and when I guess the continent was colonized at first. We recently there were the 275th birthday of founder and Masonic president of the U.S. George Washington. And a very simple search, I guess, on Wikipedia on the Mayflower, of course, states that the Mayflower was the ship that transported Creations Radio. This is Internet Talk Radio, available through our website, redicecreations.com. I'm your host, Henrik Palmgren, and we are recording from the west coast of Sweden. Thank you for tuning in to this Sunday edition of our program. And today we have back with us on the show our monthly regular, Alan Watt, and it's always a pleasure and a treat to spend time cutting through the matrix with Mr. Watt. And Alan's website, of course, is cuttingthroughthematrix.com, or you can try .net also. Check it out, follow along in his excellent audio blurbs, and take a look at the books and the DVDs and all the material that he's got available there for you. So I hope things have been good since we last spoke, Alan. Welcome. It's great to have you back on the line.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. We received a few word emails about a few weeks ago regarding your website being down and so forth.